Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Township of Wainfleet Special Council meeting December 1st, 2020 to order. And I would just like to note that zooming in is Councillor Cridland. And so we'll have to work with that. Donna, thank you very much. Do our land acknowledgement statement. I'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee people, acknowledging the One Bowl and Spoon Treaty. I look for any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Okay, seeing none. We're going to move right into our delegations. Now we have two delegations this evening. The first one is Conrad Beckingham. 10 minutes, Conrad, and you'll see me give you the 1 minute left symbol, so just so you know. And you're welcome to come to the podium and do your delegation. Hit the red button and you're off to the races.
Good evening, Mayor, members of Council. My name is Conrad Beckingham. I live at 21209 Rattler Road, Port Colborne. I'm here today to talk to you about the new fire hall construction and my personal experiences with that. Support and level of service. Over the past few years, I've seen Council invest a great deal of resources and equipment, and having these in training. There's been leaps and bounds of progress. We have come from a downgraded fire department by the Ontario Fire Marshals to exterior suppression with no intended rescues. It's now being able to provide full fire suppression and rescues, in which the public, I would expect, like us to keep. This has been made possible by Council's continued support of a strong professional leadership team and a hardworking, committed volunteer firefighters. However, without Council's continued support through investments in proper faculties, modern equipment, and a command structure, it is my concern that we could head backwards, essentially wasting all the time and money that we've previously invested. For the fire station size, I believe the original concept design was a good, perfect size for Wainfleet. Without the appropriate office space for the administration, station officers, and training officer, we would not have proper space to discuss sensitive information privately with firefighters. Presently, these discussions are taken either outdoors in the open training space or in truck bays. Additionally, the training officer does not have an adequate or permanent workspace. Depending on what they need to accomplish, they have been required to work from home, work in the open training area in the lounge, or in the town hall. Each time they have to pack up all their equipment, all their books, move it with them, as there's no permanent storage space for any of the equipment. And that's not easily accessible. This results in a lot of wasted time, resources, completing these tasks. Training and efficiencies. The original proposed training room design was ideal. It would fit all the current firefighters and the number of firefighters that Council has approved in the establishing and regulating bylaws. If we were to reduce the size or eliminate it all, we would either have to make multiple training nights or we'd have to train at different locations. This would have increased time cost with travel times, loading up the truck, loading our equipment up, going to the fireground training center, and then coming back to debrief in the classroom once we're finished. The building requirements from the Ontario Building Code and the Ministry of Labour. As you're aware from the Chief's report, the Ministry of Labour was involved in 2016 with numerous orders. At the time, Council informed the Ministry of Labour these issues would be fixed with the new fire hall. All the records are on the Township's website, available for everyone to see under the Central Fire Station project. Renovations or additions to the existing stations would prove to be excessively costly, as the entire structure would have to be brought up to code. Building the entire station properly the first time, avoiding any costly additions and renovations will save the taxpayers in the long run. Space for growth and long-term planning. This project is our one opportunity to address our current issues while also preparing for the future. We need to plan for the long-term future with appropriate space for growth, as this building is expected to last 75 years. The most efficient builds that are built with continuous frontline staff involvement during all stages. These frontline workers understand what is required and know how the building has to be built to function efficiently. Just going to talk about the fire underwriters. The fire underwriters, they grade and report to all the insurance companies how the fire department's graded, and they have different criteria that fire departments have to meet. And they got different grading systems on their website. I won't go into that much detail. But currently, we only have one fire station that's graded, and that's Burnaby, and it's graded as a 3B. All the other fire stations are graded at 5, which is little to no protection. So that will affect people's home insurance. Once we get it brought up to 3A, 3B, everyone will be able to see a part reduction in their fire insurance. I have a listing of all the equipment and trucks that are there, but more importantly, to be accredited fire station, apparatus must be stored in a suitably constructed and arranged fire hall. We need one chief and 15 auxiliary firefighters to respond to a call to a structure fire. Currently, we only have 45 firefighters over 4 stations. That leaves us with 15 empty spots, what we need to fill if we were to keep 4 stations. Reducing it to 3 stations, we bring that number down to 15 per station, which will help with the grading system. Physical and mental health wellness. With all the stresses firefighters endure on the job, both emotionally and physically, they require a space to return after calls, decontaminate, debrief, and decompress. Part of our health and wellness program is having the ability to address any potential long-term conditions from stressful incidents, adequate faculties that provide quiet rehabilitation is all part of our PTSD prevention plan that was approved by Council in 2019. Firefighters are expected to perform at their best under less than ideal conditions. With only a moment's notice to react, this requires fighters to maintain a high level of fitness at all times. If firefighters cannot maintain a high level of fitness, performance on the fireground will be reduced by inefficient work, which means more air consumptions, more firefighters to complete tasks. A lack of fitness also produces some other hazards. For firefighters, by putting higher stresses on the body, it increases risks for cardiac emergencies on the firegrounds and at home several hours after the incident's over. Cancer prevention. Modern and more synthetic materials make most, if not all, fires more hazardous. This results in firefighters becoming more exposed to cancer-causing toxins than before. To adequately protect firefighters, they need a proper place to decontaminate gear, equipment, and themselves from these hazardous materials. Firefighters have a 53% chance of getting cancer caused from firefighting. This number is increasing every year. With proper faculties to decontaminate firefighters' equipment, personal protective equipment, this will greatly reduce the risk of cancer to Wainfleet firefighters. Since 2018, current fire department leadership has been responsible for approximately $2.5 million in operating expenditures, approximately $835,000 in capital projects. The leadership team has exercised due diligence in ensuring tax dollars are spent wisely and responsibly. The team has creatively addressed the needs of the department and community while ensuring budgets are adhered to. A great example of this is our capital project for this year was the SCBA project. The project was set at approved budget at $400,000. However, a careful review of the needs and through an evaluation of the options available, the team was able to almost save $100,000, 25% of the budget. This allowed for the purchase of the SCBA compressor and filling station to be purchased ahead of schedule, which removed approximately $85,000 of principal plus interest from the new fire station project. These savings and efficiencies, use of funding shows the community and council that Wainfleet Fire and Emergency Services are fiscally responsible. The fire department leadership team has proven that only the cost needed equipment for delivery of service without pushing for costly high-end equipment or fancy add-ons are requested. With that being said, I believe that the fire department leadership team has the experience and restraint to ensure that the fire station can come under or on budget if there are no further delays. So with all that information, I believe that the fire hall should be built built to the original concept designs designed by the firm with a spatial needs assessment completed by council and the Wainfleet firefighters.
Thank you very much, Conrad. Are there any questions of our presenter by council? Any comments? Okay, seeing Councillor Gilmore, you have a question?
Sorry, Mayor, I was just checking something. Thanks, Conrad, for your presentation. Have you had a chance to review the sort of smaller footprint drawing? And if so, what, other than removing the permanent offices, what deficiencies do you see in that plan?
The biggest one I would see was reducing the training room size. We went from the larger room to the smaller room, which we can only effectively fit, I think it was 36 firefighters in that room. So we'd either have to break it up into 2 training sessions, stagger them apart, or we'd have to find a larger location to complete all our theory and in-class training. As for the administration stuff, as I said, that the training officer doesn't have any permanent workspace to keep all his stored material, all his book work. He has to take it around with him all the time.
Yeah, okay, but there are 3 workstations and a storage area in that. That would be my first thing. And what typically, how many, you referred that usually about 30 people generally show up for training.
Yep.
In the sketch that I have, it shows seating for 40. So I'm just wondering how you square that.
On average, it's been about 30. We do have 45 on our roster currently.
Yeah, I understand that.
We're trying to increase that. The issue is if more than our average shows up, then we're stuck in a bind and we have to try and figure out what we're going to do then. We don't know ahead of time who's going to show up and how many people are going to show up. They just show up and then we adjust it as we go. And
that's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gilmore. Councillor McLellan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Conrad, thank you very much for the presentation. I just want to go a little further on what Councillor Gilmore was asking. So I know at one point the report said we should have 60 firefighters. We have 45. If we bring all 45 to Chambers Corners, what happens if there's an accident or a fire on Lakeshore and Quarry Road or up in Wellandport and 45 people are sitting there? Is that responsible? Should we not be doing the training in 2 stages anyway? So there is somebody that can respond at Burnaby and somebody that can respond at Wellandport?
That's something we would have to bring up with the association and under their agreement. And that's why we do keep the training centralized to the township. So if there is an emergency on either end of the township, we're equal distances away, we're able to respond to the incidents. When we're at training, we save the time from responding to our house, from our house to the halls. When we're at training already, we're at the trucks. We save anywhere from 5 to 6 minutes, I think it is, on top of that. So we essentially save our drive time from the average person's house to the hall to respond.
But if you're all at Chambers Corners,
Yep.
and you have to get to the Burnaby Fire Station, Lakeshore and Quarry Road, it's going to take you longer. The guys that live up around Burnaby would be there quicker if they were at home than they would be if they're at Chambers Corners, correct?
Correct, if they're at home. But when we're at the training, if we stagger our training, typically, say Station 3, we bring everyone to the village or Chambers Corners for training, and there's an incident or an accident back at that location, they still have that drive time back. And additionally, I live about 4 or 5 minutes away from Station 3. So for me to get out of my house, go to the hall, that's 4 to 5 minutes. And the same drive time is very similar from Chambers Corners up that direction. So we're essentially just saving equal amount of times from people's houses to the station, whether they're at the training center in the trucks already.
Thank you.
Our CAO had his hand up for a question or comment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. And again, just in response to that question, I'm not on the fire department, so I don't have the answer. But it would seem logical to me that if the entire fire department were located at a central station and there was a call being placed for the Burnaby station, for example, you would have crews available from the central station to immediately hop into those trucks and drive directly to the location of the fire, thus at least getting feet on the ground as quickly as possible, while the remaining troops, if you will, proceed to Burnaby and get the other vehicles out of there. Again, I don't know the run assignments. I don't know that for sure, but that would be my expectation, that you'd have immediate response from the station that is manned.
It still takes you longer to drive there.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment, Councillor Gilmore?
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the record, on the smaller design, the floor plan, the training room calls for 912 square feet divided by 45 is 20 square feet per person. So just so that we're all understand that there's, even in the downsized room, it allows for 20 square feet per person.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion, please, to receive this. Made by Councillor Van Vliet, seconded by Councillor Gilmore. All in favor of receiving this report? And I guess I need to do that by vote, so sorry. Councillor Cridlin?
In favor?
Councillor Gilmore?
Favor.
Councillor Van Vliet?
In favor.
And Councillor McClellan?
In favor.
And that is received. Thank you very much, Conrad. And now we look to Mr. Brendan Mader. Mr. Mader has submitted a delegation request to speak about the new fire hall construction at Chambers Corners. And we'll try to keep it to 10, 12 minutes. Thank you.
Wasn't. Sorry. Do I need to start over or? Okay. Do I get new time? Good evening, councillors and Mr. Mayor. My name is Brendan Mader. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the new fire hall construction at Chambers Corners. My wife and I are in our mid-30s, currently raising 4 children in the Burnaby Road area. Listening to past council meetings, I have observed a tendency to forget about the up-and-coming Fleeters. The Fleeters that reside here with a growing family. and you could even say the future of Wainfleet. From 2009 to 2011, Wainfleet Fire and Emergency Services were considered a joint fire service. We were joined with the City of Port Colborne. Obvious problems arose from this arrangement, so many people in this municipality believe that this was not a path our community, Wainfleet, should be on. Wainfleet Fire should be managed by our own people, having a neighboring city manage our scene calls, manage training, manage our finances. It didn't sit well, and I would say 100% of the staff, the fire suppression staff at that point, and 70% of the citizens, and they were very vocal about that, many citizens didn't like it at all. And the result would Wainfleet would venture on its own under the direction of a paid part-time chief. I want to highlight that the community did not want Wainfleet to be a joint fire service. The community did not want Wainfleet to be a joint fire service. And I feel I need to repeat this because all the people that may be listening, of those people, they may be the ones right now raising questions about the cost of this current project. We chose that expensive option. Chief Cole was our first part-time paid fire chief, hired in 2013, and here a master fire plan was originated. This plan outlined direction for our council and our chief. And I challenge council to look at that plan from what has been accomplished infrastructure-wise then until now. The obvious rescue pumpers, tanker pumps, joining of halls station 1 and 2 to a central location on a property already owned by the municipality. This was located at Chambers Corners. Obviously, there were other building increases at the outlining halls. And in 2016, there was a review of this plan. Out of that review, we were allowed to hire a fire prevention officer. And along with that review, the same hall needed to join rescue pumpers, tanker pumps, along with increases to outlying halls. Out of this review, a committee was formed, and they were to provide insight on forward capital spending projects. That committee could not agree how to pursue a central station at Chambers Corners, so priority switched to Burnaby Road, Station 3. I believe Alderman Gilmore was on council at that point, and I believe Councillor McClellan was the citizen representative. And I highlight this because I feel we are ending with the same result right now. We know we have a need. We have a $1.4 million budget. After the Station 3 went to RFQ, it came back at $2 million. We tried to save money by reducing space costs, and in turn, we have nothing. In fact, this project went to tender 2 times to minimize costs, and there Station 3 sits. We still need to spend money on that hall. And who knows what that cost would be today. We are repeating the exact same result for this joint station venture at Chambers Corners. And Councillor McCullen, I really highlight your involvement in each of these construction projects because your bridge repair and roads repair experience seems to get involved with these builds. And the result for us as citizens is in fact nothing. In fact, your involvement seems to give us a very negative result where more meetings happen than getting a shovel in the ground. And because of your experience, we see as citizens that this council looks to you as a professional. And my challenge to this council is to listen to the master fire plan and listen to your fire chief's recommendations. The professional in this area is not Councillor McClellan, Councillor Van Vliet, Councillor Gilmore, or Councillor Clinland. Our professional is our paid full-time fire chief. So let's use that experience. We have paid $110,000 for consultants since 2013, and these people were to give us direction with that master fire plan. Not one council present or past is willing to spend the money and deal with these infrastructure needs. We are now 2020, and the cost is only increasing. Each member of this council took part in an assessment survey in January of this year. This needs assessment was completed, and in your opinions, was formed what Wainfleet needed in a central fire hall. The volunteer firefighters also completed this assessment. This survey resulted in the drawing we have in front of us. It set priorities for this project. And from there, I also observed through Wainfleet Township Facebook post, our councillors and mayor taking part in a show and tell style viewing of many fire halls within our region. This gave you all much needed view of what Wainfleet needs. The council decided to move forward on a $4.5 million building, approximate $4.5 million building, that suited Wainfleet in a very positive way. It fit the criteria you all set out. The building is beautiful. It sits at a focal point of our township, and it would be something that each person living here should feel proud of. This is not a legacy building, but a structure the community will use and be proud to see while driving by. It's a structure that we have been suggested to build for many years, and it will be a building my family will be able to use 30 or 40 years down the road. This new Wainfleet build is taking the role of two previous fire halls, becoming a main station or headquarters. This is not a satellite hall. It is or just a building to house a fire truck or equipment. It is not storage like what we have now. You have tried to save money by cutting apart the building and omit staffing rooms and eliminate a large portion of the training room. This does not tell me you are all in on building a fire headquarters. The building priority has to be housing a training facility suitable to hold a full-duty complement, and on paper, I believe that is over 60 right now. The training room you currently have selected cuts it down to include space for 30 personnel. And just observing from what you guys were asking, that's 30 personnel seated in a classroom setting. In any training scenario that firefighters are involved with, most of it is done practically, and that facility will be used in a practical form. So if you can picture this room being vacant and the floor being utilized as the training room. So if you're trying to fit 40 people in this room empty, dragging hose around or crawling around in a smoked out room, it gets very difficult. I ask you, how important is firefighter training to this municipality? In 2016, firefighters were downgraded to perimeter firefighting measures only. This was due to lack of training, lack of direction, lack of equipment, and lack of budget. Wainfleet Fire Association almost unionized because of the lack of communication between the parties involved. Here we are 5 years later, and that has definitely changed. Wainfleet has and still does have some of the top fire suppression trained personnel in Southern Ontario. Many are sought after by full-time departments because of their willingness to work, their willingness to help in the community, and their eagerness to learn the skills they bring to the table. The communication gap has closed, and this department is pushing along very prominent in all aspects, minus the infrastructure. This building priority needs to include office space for lead instructors to complete preparation work and for fire management to complete their daily duties near or close to on-duty staff. Please do not cut away anything from your original needs drawing, option number 1, or the revised option, which is fine, eliminating the accessibility title. Chief Alcock has been involved and was influential in a previous fire hall build in the last community he came from. Chief Alcock is the most competent person to proceed as our project manager. And I wanted to find a competent person to eliminate whomever we feel says they are competent in this field. And it's a competent person is someone who has training, experience, and knowledge in the intended practice. Please do not pay a third-party firm to be the project lead. Wainfleet has a full-time fire chief for a reason, and we hired him, so let him do his job. The last comment I leave you with. Each of your names, amongst many other sponsors, citizens, or people in our community, will likely be placed on a plaque at this new fire hall. Usually this happens to recognize efforts spent in planning and in preparation. When you look at that plaque in 10, 15 years from now, are you going to be happy because you cut $500, $700, maybe $800,000 to build 3/4 of a fire headquarters and get a dollar figure under $4 million? Or are you going to be proud because you spent the money and built a structure that will be utilized by everyone for years to come? A building that you all initially stated met Wainfleet's needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mader. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor McClellan.
To you, Mr. Mayor. Brendan,
Yes.
the committee I sat on,
Yeah,
it was not a committee of council. We had no say in what happened.
I see.
The former CAO, I think his name was Smith, was it Michael Smith? Decided to put that tender out and never told any of us what he was doing. We had never seen it. We didn't know it was going to tender. So
I was
don't
unaware of
blame me
that.
for this. You don't know the whole story.
I was unaware of that.
Okay, so before you start throwing things around, know what you're talking about.
But I will throw around, I feel that you have a lot of influence here. And in this circumstance, I don't think it's warranted. No good.
Okay, we won't get into a debate. Thank you very much, Brendan. Any other questions? Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Brendan. I just want to put to rest a couple of things. There's none of us around this table or online who don't want to and aren't going to not let this fire hall be built. This thing will be built probably next year. All we're really debating about now, essentially, is
Cost.
whether there's permanent offices there and whether the training room goes from 900 or back to 1,000 some odd square feet. Really, nothing else. I mean, there's other implications, financial implications that we have to sort out. And quite frankly, I'll be prouder if my children and grandchildren are happy that I did something to save $1 million than if I overpaid for something. That's where I want to come out. I don't need my name on a plaque or anything like that. When they tromp around on the grass on top of me, I want them to say that I did the right thing. So this will get done. We're just working on the details.
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Van Vliet.
Brendan, thank you for speaking. In your professional opinion, because you're a professional firefighter, what benefit do you see having the administration staff work out of the fire station?
There is a lot of different style calls that happen, and it kind of reiterates what Conrad said. There is a lot of debriefing that happens with those calls, not just mentally, but things in which can be done better. And if those offices are there, they have the ability to work from there, and they have the ability to be right beside their staff. And I think anyone sitting up there, if they were to build a facility for their own company, they would feel the same way. So I don't know how it's not being extended to this.
I happen to agree with you. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cridland, just anything?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. There's firefighters in the gallery, no doubt, and I'm just going to just chime in and thank them for their hard work this week, because I think we've had a busy week out there. I do appreciate hearing two very distinct analysis of, how we got here. So, we can go through line by line, but as Councillor Gilmore has said, we're very close to, what we need to do next. So thank you again for your time.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other comments or questions, I have a motion here to receive this report. Anybody? Councillor Van Vliet makes the motion. Councillor McClellan seconds it. And yay or nay, Councillor Cridland, in favor or opposed to receive it?
In favor?
Councillor Gilmore?
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet?
In favor.
And Councillor McClellan. Thank you. That is received. Thank you very much, Brendan. Okay, we'll now move on to staff reports and recommendations, and I look to our CAO, Mr. Colassa, to provide an overview of his report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council. I do have a brief slide presentation which sort of reviews the project to date. I will speak very quickly at a high level to move you quickly through this and allow you to get into your deliberations. After my presentation, I'd like to call on our architect to provide some additional information and advice regarding the different options that he has presented, all arising from council direction. In keeping with council direction, again, I would note that last month in November, there was a motion passed that did sort of remove other staff from the project for all intents and purposes. But I must say at this time that I can't do this alone. And as I present to you this evening, there may be questions coming forward that I don't have an answer to. I know we have the other key township staff, finance, operations, fire, on the line and available to support with any questions that I can't answer myself. So I trust that that will be acceptable to council at this time. So moving on to the slide presentation very quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the first slide. It basically just reviews the history of the project, which actually started in 2005 when the township acquired the first piece of land in Chambers Corners. Certainly there was work done prior to that to sort of identify that option, but that's really the sort of real concrete stick from which we can take our measurements. Since then, there have been a number of studies that have been undertaken. I won't get into those again. They were mentioned by some of the delegations. And suffice it to say that we're at a point where when this council took office at the end of 2018, but early in your term, you identified fire as being certainly a priority or an issue. And you actually took the next step or the first real step of this council by acquiring a parcel of land immediately adjacent to the original parcel to ensure that there was sufficient land in the custody of the township to be able to address its fire needs moving forward. Based on that, there was an original design study that was undertaken in early 2020. That was informed by a number of different elements, including those studies that had been done previously, a survey that was undertaken with members of council and members of the fire department, some Ministry of Labor orders, and various guides and best practices associated with developing fire facilities. The original design study that was sort of done internally was then we reached out to an architectural consultant to provide us some additional professional experience, and in doing so, a number of options were developed, and the first option, which is the one that was presented in August of 2020, was a building comprised of approximately 12,455 square feet, including load-bearing concrete block construction, engineered wood truss roofing system, concrete block exterior walls, spray foam insulation, and mixed veneer exterior cladding consisting of metal siding and a brick lower portion. Altogether, the building costs for that project were about $2.5 million. Next slide. Unfortunately, building cost alone is not the entirety of the project because there are additional costs above and beyond that dealing with general costs associated with project overhead, site costs, fixtures, furnishings, and equipment, permits, consultant fees, and so on. So that project building that would have cost $2.5 million suddenly gets a little bit higher, and we're looking at close to $4 million at that stage. Why are we going through the design concept process? And the purpose for us getting these design concepts in front of you now is in order for us to proceed to the next phase of the actual project, which in a project charter that was developed proposed to be a design bid build model. So what you are able to solidify now will be the groundwork for us to go to market to obtain a firm to provide us final design, engineering, and contract management services to actually construct the new facility. With those services in place, the next stage after that is actually proceeding to a request for quotations or a request for tender so that the actual construction can occur. That summarizes the sort of approach we've taken to date. And it differs somewhat from previous approaches in that we're bringing some designs to you now so that when we go to market, we have a much firmer understanding of what the final project or what the final facility will look like. So in the intervening time, or since that August meeting when the original design concepts were introduced, there have been a number of progressive steps taken by council to move the project forward. One of them was to defer the actual concepts before you in order to do some more study and analysis into them. Following that, in early September, there were additional concept designs brought back, and council made a decision to utilize concrete block walls with a metal roof to replace the wood trusses that were originally proposed, as well as a full brick or block veneer, as presented in option 7 of that report in September. And just tied into that, at the same meeting, council also passed a motion directing that we work with White Line Architects to reduce the office space or the administrative side of the building by approximately 2,500 square feet, and then return back to council. And that again was in early September. There was actually a plan to have a special meeting of council in October to bring that information back to you, but due to a local COVID outbreak, that meeting had to be delayed, postponed, and effectively that's the meeting we're having this evening. But in the intervening time, again, early November, we had some additional motions that were introduced. One proposing that Niagara FADS, which is the Facility Accessibility Design Standards, which are above and beyond the Ontario Building Code to provide for increased accessibility of facilities. There was direction that was provided by council to remove the FADS elements from the station, which in turn left a building which met accessibility standards provided by the province via the building code. And then finally, the last motion that was introduced and that I referenced at the start of my session today is that a project manager model be used to oversee the completion of the design and construction of the project, and the CAO is to be the only person to remain active on the project on behalf of the township. I've already mentioned in the next slide that the council meeting on October 27th was canceled due to the local COVID outbreak. But in keeping with the previous direction from council, what we've done is we have worked with White Line, and we have developed a number of options further to the direction that was provided in September through October and November. And we have those before you for your consideration today. Likewise, in discussing the sort of direction given by council with White Line, we also ask that they take a look back at some of the prior options and try to include in the table some of the impacts of some of those decisions, and we will have those for you in table moving right along. So what you have on this slide is essentially a summary of 4 different options pulled out of the large table that is contained as table, give me a second here. It's table 4 of the staff report that you have before you today. So rather than trying to squeeze the entire table from the report on the screen, I focused on simply 4 of those options. Option 1, which is the original design concept that was introduced back in August. Option 1.1, which is sort of building on council's original direction to move from a wood truss roofing system to a steel truss roofing system. Option 8 is the reduced size building, which was requested by council in November. And then finally, option 9, which is sort of a revisit, if you will, of the original option 1/1A with original size, FADs removed, and we actually made one executive decision, if you will, on the staff side to try and bring the cost down, and that's to move away from the brick veneer to a mixed veneer structure in order to try and reduce some costs. In addition, what we've done as part of this review is we've asked the architect to look at some of the additional impacts, and what we have included in this are a forecast for inflation. Since the design, 2020 has been something of a crazy year with COVID, with various shutdowns, with supply, runs on supply of various materials, construction materials included. So we are seeing significant swings in the market and significant swings in the economy. So we have asked the architect to provide some estimates of inflation since the original design costs were first put together. In addition, we've asked an estimate to be included for the cost of project management phase. Again, it's an estimate at this time for your consideration. And in doing so, the architect noted that we should consider including some contingencies in the project build budget because of the project manager position, dealing with any other consultants or the architect, engineer, that sort of thing. So we have an estimate for a contingency associated with that. That pretty well summarizes the presentation I wanted to make this evening. Again, there's a lot of information that has already been presented to council. Historically, there's a lot of information on the website. Included as an attachment to my report this evening is the fire chief's report that was originally intended to be presented to the October 27th meeting of council, which was canceled, but it's been reproduced in its entirety for your review and consideration here. The other element of the project that is referenced in the as an attachment to my report is the original project charter, which was designed to sort of be a sort of roadmap to completing the project moving forward for the township. And then the last slide, again, staff at this stage are prepared to move this project forward in as expeditiously as we can in accordance with the direction that you as council give us. Staff continue to believe and recommend that the best course of action in the long run is to construct a facility that meets our current and anticipated needs for a reasonable time in the future and is not extravagant, but also not scaled down such that it fails to provide us opportunities to improve the efficiencies and effectiveness of the department. At this time, if I could, just to refocus back on those construction options, I know we have Steve Bernier of White Line Architects online. We'll finish off my presentation. Perhaps we can turn it over to him to provide some comments, or I can respond to questions first, whatever council wants to do.
Okay, well, let's first receive your report. We have a motion to receive that. Councillor McClellan, and a seconder, Councillor Van Vliet. And in favor or opposed, Councillor Crillon.
Through you, Mayor, I'm just clarifying through to the CAO. You mentioned that now this body of work that we're receiving is now receiving the charter. So we're only just receiving all of this information with this motion. Am I
Fourth revision that is presented today, yes.
That's correct, Councillor. You're receiving it. You are not adopting it. You're not implementing it.
Just receiving the report.
You're just receiving it as information.
Thank you very much.
So your vote?
In favor?
Your vote?
In favor?
Councillor Gilmore,
Favor?
Councillor McClellan,
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
Okay, that is received. And now we can have discussion, or if you wish to also go to the engineer. Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Colassa, how did we get from a 9,800 square foot building to 12,138 square feet? Where did that come from? We left it to be at 9,800 square feet is what they came back with. How did we grow again?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. As I was saying from the outset, one of the things, the option 9 was intended to sort of represent to council original option 1 with the removal of FADs, removal of the additional accessibility features that Niagara FADs included. Again, it's just being presented for information as a sort of benchmark that you can compare what removal of FADs does to say, the original structure.
So by removing FADs, you're telling me we saved 317 square feet. That's it. When the architect told me we saved 30% of the size of the building.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and we have the architect.
I know who you have there, and it was his partner that gave me that number. So I don't want to get into the mud on this, but that's what I was told. So somewhere, somebody's not telling us the whole thing.
If we have the architect online, perhaps we can just seek his opinion. He is the expert. Is that possible, Amber? Can we have him?
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that Kevin, who Councilor McClellan was discussing this with, had clarified his discussion a little bit more in depth with an email that was sent out to council a few weeks ago. Is that correct? Did everyone receive that?
I can't remember. I think
Yeah,
I remember reading it.
Yep, we did.
Okay, and that clarified maybe the comment was misconstrued. So it wasn't 30% of the building, it was 30% of the areas that were FADs applicable.
Okay, so that in doing that, Stephen, it actually just reduced it to 300 and something square feet because it's only applicable to the offices and...
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Good information to have. Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Steve. Steve, can you just explain to me under the very first section of all these estimates, general conditions? What's a, quote, general condition?
Everybody always asks. That's sort of a catch-all phrase that they use for their WSIB, their insurance, their paying for their site supervisor, rental of offices, washrooms, and all that sort of. It's just a general catch-all phrase where, and that percentage is based on a number of fire station projects.
Okay, my question is, in reviewing these numbers, that figure, it seems to be a moving target. In option 6, it was 200,000. In option 1, it was 240,000. In option E, it's 220,000. And in 9, it's back to 240. So I'm trying to get my head around why that's a moving target.
Well, what I did was, if you, it's explained that it's basically $20,000 a month. So some of the smaller builds, the quicker builds, would save a month or two, whereas they would save $20,000 to $40,000 a month. So that's where the variation is. So if you're looking just at the cost estimate breakdown, it's a little difficult to see. It's in the written portion. I have construction time at 12 months, 10 months, 11 months, and then allow $20,000 per month.
I see. Okay, and my other concern has always been the estimates for mechanical and electrical. We reduced the size by 20 some odd, close to 30%, and yet the estimates only dropped by an aggregate total, I believe, of 45,000 on from 1.07 million to 1.2 something million, 1.25, I suppose, which in itself is quite an astounding number for mechanical and electrical, without considering the decrease in the building, like, I have a hard time getting my head around that, but again, it's not in my wheelhouse. But I just don't understand why it didn't decrease in relative percentage terms.
Well, I guess the easiest explanation is if you have a house, your house needs a furnace, it needs a hot water tank, it needs ductwork to get around the house. If you reduce the size of the house, you still need your furnace, you still need your hot water tank, you still need the ductwork. You're just reducing some of the smaller components around there. You'll still need to bring all of your services to the building. You still need to bring electrical services. By reducing the size of the building, we cut out some plumbing fixtures, we cut out some lights, but still the majority of the infrastructure is where the costs are, and that's why the cost didn't come down proportionately. Whereas, say, you would lose a better proportion of, say, your painting costs or your flooring costs, where those are hard costs. It's a little bit more nebulous when it comes to the electrical and mechanical costs.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Cridlin, anything? No, no other questions on this? Okay, so we've already received it. There's no other additional motions coming out of this, so that's that. Okay. Doesn't seem like a lot of conversation considering I thought we'd have a fair bit of discussion about this evening. Councillor Van Vliet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We have an option 9 in front of us now, which I'd like to discuss, because option 9, after reading it, and believe me, this fire station has encompassed my life for the last month of what brain space I had left over personal issues. Option 9, I hope everybody's looked at it and looked at the floor plan, seems like a pretty even, it seems like it meets the needs of what we need. It's within our budget, because there is no way, no matter what we cut out of here, we're going to save millions of dollars. It's not going to happen, is it, Stephen? Correct.
Not millions.
You're not. And even going with an option 9, it's only a difference of $157,000. So, I'm just going to get right at it. I think option 9 is our best choice here. We're within the budget. We are not going to save millions of dollars. We approved a $4.5 million budget. Do we want to spend that much? No, we don't. But we approved it. So I think, I'm going to throw it out there. We need to really discuss this and really get at it. I'm not agreeing with an option 8, a downsize. It doesn't meet our assessment. We all agreed on the assessment January 20th. We all, 3 out of 5 of us did the survey. And in that survey, no one disagreed with anything. We were all agreeable to everything. So I'm not sure how our discussions went sideways. We're not following what we said we needed. So I'm opening it up there. So that's what I'm going with.
Okay, thank you. Will, I'm going to look to you because we have that previous motion that was passed to reduce it to the, by the 2,500 feet. Do we need to put that on the floor and reconsider that before we can have a motion for a different option, or what's the proper step for that?
Sorry, I'm pondering that from a technical perspective. I got to put my clerk's hat on for a second. Again, I think the motion spoke to directing staff to work with White Line Architects to come up with an option that included the removal of 2,500 square feet from the design that was presented to it previously. That motion has actually been fulfilled because we have come back with option number 8, which I believe includes the 2,500 square feet removed. So I don't know that, honestly, from just like a legal analysis perspective, that motion's already been dealt with. There's an option before you which you're able to provide additional direction on. But I don't know that there's any sort of reconsideration necessary, because option 8, I think provides, is staff's satisfying that motion to bring that back to you, which has happened and which is now in your hands to deal with or not deal with as you feel appropriate.
Okay, I think as I look at that, I would tend to agree with you that the option, if I recall, was to have the engineer look at reducing it by the 2,500 square feet. That option was fulfilled and is in front of us. And there was nothing more concrete than to go back to the engineer and seek the different build design. So that has been fulfilled. So we're now at the point where we can have more discussion if we need to, or somebody could make a motion if they wanted to select a building, or more discussion if we feel that we need more discussion. I personally, I'm good, but Councillor Cridlin, is anything there you'd like to discuss?
Through you, Mayor, thank you. Well, the bundle that we had, not that, was the previous meeting, there was one page in the report. I'm going to refer to option 8 again, where we went through, meets or exceeds, does not meet, exceeds. And it's a really clear chart for me to tell me that we've got something that could work. So, I see this as where we have, had department professionals and experts bring us their very best work. I don't disagree with that at all. I think it would be no different in any department bringing forward, their very, very best work. That's what they're doing. But we still have the whole context here as we deliberate, and it is a very weighty decision. There's no question about that. So, I'm not interested in anybody missing out on things, but when we do our work, everybody doesn't get everything all the time. So I am looking for my fellow councillors to, see how far we can go with, getting the ideal build. And if we do have to say no, I think we have a really good option 8 here to now, consider if this is what we can do consciously or in good conscience. So I like the work that's been done for option 8. I certainly can support adding a few more square feet around training. That seemed to come out loud and clear with both of the delegations tonight. I can also, comment that all the emails that we're getting are very, very helpful. But we are making great progress. So, when I hear that people saying, the delays, well, COVID happened, and otherwise, this has been moving along very well for the size of the project that it is. So I think we're very close. I'm looking for, I can hear that there's 2 people that are kind of still very, supportive of option 9. So I can still support option 8 with a few tweaks, and maybe I'll just leave it at that and see what other conversation we can have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cridlin. I'll go first to Councillor Van Vliet, I think had her hand up first.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Cridlin, are you talking about Table 3, the station design options comparison study?
I've got the one that's from October 27th, page 5.
Right.
Yes, Table 3, station design options comparison. We've got a list here. It doesn't go into the apparatus bays at all, but which of course we're not, changing at all. But it's a good marker for us making our decision tonight or later.
Okay, I just want to point out that 8 of the 16 requirements does not meet our needs assessment. And at least one of them is only 50% meets the needs of what we are assessed in January as our spatial needs.
Through you, Mayor.
Any further comment, Councillor Quidland, on that?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I'm going to go back to the January 20th. And there was a quote when I was looking at my review, as I know we've all been reviewing, in that report. And for me, I think this is what I'm going on, is that cost was not to be a key factor to design our best case scenario. Cost would come later. So whether we call it cost or size or scale, I think we're doing what we're supposed to be doing in this design phase. So if it's going a little bit of back and forth, I think that's the purpose of this process. I again, I'm still open to changing some of the 16, but I'm working from option 8 up, and I understand, if other councillors want to work from option 9, that's fine. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McClellan.
So I'm going to make a motion that we go with option 8. I don't care if we raise it 400 square feet to go to 10,200 or 10,300. Doesn't even bother me. But I think that's where we need to be.
Okay, and so in doing that, just to clarify, and Stephen, probably need you here, when you're talking about raising it 500 square feet or thereabouts to say 10.5, are you talking about adding to the training room, which seems to be one of the sticking points that we need that training room?
You can add it to the training room that's on there, that's fine. I don't think you need 400 or 500 square feet there. I know when I went through it, on the apparatus bay, they took 300 and some odd square feet out of the apparatus room. I think we need that back there. So it might give you 200 square feet or 150 square feet more in the training room. Because when I asked, it was just to take it off of the office part of it. But when I did the math, they had actually taken 350 square feet off of the apparatus room, which is not the intent. Those men need everything they have out there.
Okay, so we have a motion, you made a motion.
Yep.
Option 8, adding on 500
Call
square.
it 500 square feet.
500 more square feet to option 8 to be assessed by who to go where? By the engineer?
I say we put back what was in the apparatus bay, and then we add what's left of that 500 square feet, which will be about 150 square feet, can go to the training room.
I would love to know the chief's opinion on this, Will. Perhaps we could ask the chief or yourself as the person, or if you need to delegate it down, but where would that 500 square feet really help us?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, probably the best thing to do is to get the motion on the floor and then have discussion of the motion where you can go to the chief or to the architect or.
Okay.
So if it's moved by Councillor McClelland, if there's a seconder, that gets it on the floor, and then you can discuss that, and then.
Okay, so the motion is option 8 plus 500 square feet is on the floor. That's moved by Councillor McClelland. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Gilmore seconds it. And now discussion. Councillor McClelland.
So I have one other question, and I guess this would go to Steve. Steve, why is it that the shop part is on the east side of it, where the septic bed is east of that? So we're running the washroom facilities and everything through the shop or under the shop, and the pond is on the west side, which is where the trucks need to go to get their water for the dry hydrant. It doesn't make sense. That building should be reversed. And I know you need so much fall for your sewer, and you just make it longer, deeper. You'll probably have to have an extra pump for your septic bed when you go there. I'm just asking kind of a common sense question here.
Okay, Stephen, please.
Yeah, I do believe way back when we started this, We kind of used the entrance that the region is allowing for this site as sort of the direction where we were going to have our apparatus base. Morgan, you might be able to chime in on this if you're available.
Yeah. So we had a traffic study done. I believe the manager of operations, Richard, had that done. And at that time, the MTO's recommendation was that we could only use one entrance. There's currently two on the shared properties. And that their recommendation was that it was closer to the hamlet boundary. So we had to use the easterly entrance, and that's why the site plan was developed that way.
Okay, thank you. Councilor McClellan.
The other question is, you have the mezzanines, one on one side and one on the other side, so we have two drive-throughs and two that you have to back in. Why would we not make it 3 complete drive-throughs and put the 2 mezzanines back to back, so it's one long one?
There is no reason that it was done that way. That was just what was suggested.
So if that change was made, what would that do, Stephen?
It wouldn't change the square footage at all.
No.
Okay.
Change anything.
It's more efficient.
Just more efficient. Now you can drive through all bays.
Okay.
Although I don't know if that's exactly what they do.
No, I don't either, but if we're calling them drive-through bays, you should be able to drive through them.
Okay, so that motion is on the floor. Any other discussion? Councillor Gilmore?
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, what we're debating here is whether we have offices there or we don't. That's really all we're talking about at the end of the day. So what we haven't ever talked about yet, ever, is what's going to happen to Station 2 when it's vacated by the fire department. And what's going to happen at Station 2 when it's vacated by the fire department is that it's going to require $400,000, maybe $500,000 of renovation to bring it up to code so we can expand the fire hall, and creates a bunch of storage, maybe expand the library. And my question is, why can't we put the fire offices over there? We have Public Works over there. They're not in this building, but you're all in the same proximity to each other. So I need someone to explain to me why, when we know we have to spend a ton of money there, as soon as they vacate it or leave it empty, why that discussion, we've never had that discussion. No one's ever mentioned how much it's going to be, other than Richard has told us that we have to upgrade a whole bunch of buildings if we do a single thing to them, and this will be doing something to it, and so now is the time. I need someone to explain to me why the offices can't be there, and then I'll have some background as to whether I should even remotely consider moving off my position.
Will, are you able to answer that first?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll take a stab at it. I see other councillors' hands up, but
So I just wanted to add to that, if you don't mind, and that because of everything I've heard from staff, and we did a walkthrough through this office, and you tell us it's too tight, it's too small, the kitchen isn't big enough, this isn't right. So we're never going to build a new town hall. So if you're going to do anything in that building, the old fire hall, you should gut it, and we should make offices over there that include the fire chief, the deputy fire chief, and whatever secretaries or other people that we have here, or assistants that we have here, that can go over there, because I don't see us building a new town hall. Yet I hear all the time, it's inadequate, it's too small, it doesn't have an elevator, it doesn't have access, it doesn't have a good lunchroom. So I can read between the lines what you're asking for over the last 18 months. So I kind of agree with Mr. Gilmore. If we're going to do something, that's where we should be. But we need a number, because that's coming.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Vliet?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have actually talked about the fire hall, like right behind us. It was going to be expanded to make the library bigger, get rid of the kitchen. That was all in talks. We had all those talks of what was going to happen. And as far as the town hall here, the actual usage of office space in here is 2,200 square feet. I've measured it all out. The actual office space at the proposed fire station is 560 square feet of office space. I measured it all out. It is what it is. So we're not asking for much. And the reason why the fire staff should be with where all the equipment is and where all their supplies are is so they don't have to run around all over the township to check on things, to make sure everything's where it should be. That is common sense. I don't go to my house and put the kitchen outside and have to run outside every time I want to cook something. Like, it makes sense to have everything centrally located. Everybody, like, that's just logical sense to me.
Thank you. And Councillor McClellan?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we still have Burnaby and we still have Wellandport. So there's going to be stuff in Wellandport and stuff in Burnaby that they're going to have to go and check. So it might stop one place you got to look. That's all it's going to do. You still have to know what's in what hall and who used what and what's there. I don't buy that.
Councillor Wainfleet?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In all the reports that the fire chief has done for us, it is explained that a central fire station headquarters, which we all agreed on, we didn't agree on a satellite station, we didn't agree on a garage, we didn't agree on a storage apparatus. We agreed on a central fire station headquarters where everything that is stored all over this township can be located into one space. And I understand that all the other stations need work. The whole township needs infrastructure. We all know that. That's the way it is in every municipality. We can only do one thing at a time, like one job at a time. We have been handcuffed by past councils because nobody could make a decision. We agreed to make a decision on this fire hall. And every time we go forward, we go backward. We've all heard from the public. I've heard extensively from the public. I mean, I'm out there. I am very social, as you all know. Not that everybody else isn't. But if there was some kind of, groundswell opposition to this, I would hear it. I would be the first person to hear it. We all know how many emails we've gotten. They are completely evenly split, for and against. Some actually didn't even decide if they were for or against. They were just giving their opinion one way or the other. So what we really need to think about is the people of this township and what they want. And they've essentially been waiting for 17 years because it was originally bought in 2003. That's when it was discussed. So I think we really need to stop this and just get going. If the majority of Wainfleet residents are on side with us. I have talked to them. They have talked to me. They phone me on my cell phone. Everybody in this township has my number. Like, I don't know what it is we're arguing about, but we agreed to build a central headquarters following the 2013 master plan and every other report that we should have read. It's pretty clear what's out there and what should be done.
Thank you. And I'm just going to echo a comment there from one of our presenters tonight. Conrad spoke about the amount of time required to move around from facility to facility, lugging equipment. And I think that number in your report, Conrad, was somewhere around $20,000 a year wasted in lost time just on training nights, or at least 45 minutes of the 2-hour training wasted in just travel. And so the public knows this. Firefighters are not volunteers, they're volunteers, but they're paid. And when they're out working and doing a 2-hour training on a Monday night, they're being paid to do that. So if they waste 45 minutes to an hour getting equipment, lugging it out to a site to do training, come back again, that's wasted time. As a taxpayer, you're only getting half of that training that you're paying for. So that's an important point to know as well, that the centralized station will reduce a vast amount of that, and it'll all be done right there. You go there, 2 hours, you're done your training, it's all there on site. I'm very much in favor, and this is just a standard fire station. They're built in every community in Canada, and we seem to be struggling here to just build a basic standard fire station that everybody else has as well. It's not a big fancy thing. The comments about people talking about it being the Taj Mahal, et cetera, well, compared to Fire Station 2 in Winger with the garage, it is. But it's just a standard fire hall like everybody else has. And my goal all along, and people have always said, yeah, do it right. Do it the first time, do it right. So I'm very much of that thinking. If it costs us an extra $500,000 to do it right, or $300,000, but based over the life of 75 years, that's not anything to worry about. And we're going to have it done right. I worry about, you know, you don't put offices in there. The NPCA built their building, didn't put offices in there, and now they're paying more money to have offices elsewhere when they could have centralized. And you know, that wasn't maybe the smartest thing to do. However, it did happen. But there's a case in point where putting it all together, getting it together once and for all works and will work for the future. And I honestly believe, very much like Mr. Mader presented, 20 and 30 years from now, this thing will be paid for, it's all done, and the future, the next 40, 50 years, we have a great fire hall to look after the residents. We all saw what happened in the last two days over the weekend. You know, we had 2 major fires, and the training and the response and everything worked, despite not having a good facility. But we're at the tipping point. We need that proper facility. I echo Councillor Gilmore's point. We got to get going on this. Councillor Van Vliet's point. We have to get going on this. We need to make a decision, pick the right fire hall here, and we need to get the RFP out and get it started. Because you know what? The longer we wait, it's like $200,000 a year inflation. So we're sitting here, you know, fussing over maybe $100,000 or $200,000 every year that we delay. The inflationary costs are a couple $100,000. If we'd have built this thing 10 years ago, it'd have been $2 million. It'd be mostly paid for, and we'd be laughing. Go 10 years down the road, same scenario. So I'm very much it needs to get going here. So, Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to point out between option 8 and option 9, option 9 actually, it's far more than 500 square feet in office space. And as far as storage goes, there's no storage in the whole administrative side in option 9. Not one square foot actually. There's a lot more in option 8. So I'm puzzled by those measurements, and I'm more puzzled that there's no storage in the drawing for option 9. However, I still want a response from the CAO about my question.
Would you be interested in hearing from the engineer again on that question you just wrote?
Sure.
Let's hear that first.
Take it in that order. That'd be great.
Yeah, let's hear that first from Stephen, and then we can go to Will. Stephen, do you have an answer regarding the office space there?
Well, option 9 was basically option 1, which was previously approved. There is storage in option 1 behind the deputy chief. All the inventory is stored back there. Also, in the general administration area, there is a bank of cupboards for stationery as well as photocopying machine. And there is no general. Option 9 has one dedicated small 8x8 storage room, which I agree is not in the other option. But there is the clean inventory room, which is about 6 by 12 feet.
Okay. Will, can you respond to the other part?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and again, I believe the question was, why haven't we done an analysis yet about moving the chief or the office space into the existing station once it's vacated? And I think the answer to that is simply we're not there yet. When we were tasked with trying to develop a concept, which is what we're dealing with right now, for a new central fire station in accordance with those studies and plans that have been done over the last 7 or 8 years, we looked at best practices and what other central stations in other municipalities look like. And again, as we looked at during our tour, those central stations that we visited did have the senior administration from the fire departments included in them. So as such, as we're developing this process, this concept, that was our primary focus, to sort of provide what sort of best of breed stations do, which includes having the senior administration staff in the proposed central building. Certainly, if I could, in the event that council provides direction that that administration staff space does not belong in that main central station, we will, at some point or another, need to look at all the other alternatives for accommodating those staff, perhaps not in the next 12 months, but certainly as time progresses, it's been mentioned, this building itself is basically at capacity from a staffing perspective. Again, we are managing right now, but 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, whenever there will be a demand for additional staffing space here in the township, provided the township still remains. And we will, at that stage, be in a position where we are going to have to look elsewhere. Other uses for that facility, again, the one that is being sort of left behind is, as has been mentioned, library expansion. There are accessibility issues associated with the community hall here, which need to be addressed. We currently have an ambulance or EMS service that is operating out of this facility right now. We provide them a small office, if you will, and again, it's not much larger than perhaps a large storage room, but their vehicles are left idling outside, particularly in the off-season, in the winter season, and certainly we would very much hope to be able to keep the EMS service here in the township. One of our early efforts with this new central fire hall was to approach Niagara EMS to see if they would be willing to partner at this time with EMS bays attached to the facility. Unfortunately, those efforts didn't succeed in providing a productive conclusion at this time. But if we do have now vacant bay space, for example, at the old fire station, perhaps that is something that could be retasked to address storage there. Again, the EMS vehicle that they currently have in operation for Wainfleet is nowhere near the size of a fire vehicle. Even our smallest rescue trucks are bigger than their paramedics vehicle. So again, that is something that we would certainly be looking at in the event that the ideal, if you will, or the best of breed solution, which is office space at the fire hall. If that doesn't go through, then by all means, Councillor, that'll be next on the list.
Okay, Councillor Van Vliet, I think, was first.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gilmer, you had mentioned that in option 8, there is an 8x10 storage room. In option 8, there is also not a full-size female change room or shower. So it's downsized completely. So if I'm looking at this, and I know that we have at least one female firefighter on staff, there's 2 now. So our washroom and shower facility are already at capacity with option 8 for females. So we're kind of saying to women out there, you know, don't come and recruit at our station because you only get half the space.
And that's today. What about 30, 40 years from now?
Exactly my point I was going to make. I do have cousins who are professional firefighters throughout.
I mean, we toured fire stations that were built 20 and 30 years ago, and were already deemed to be inadequate in all those little areas, little things like that weren't thought about. So that's my whole point is, like, let's build it right and be done with it, because it will last 75 years.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. That is one of the big things I looked at when I looked at option 8. Like, going into this building with the staff that we have, of the firefighters that we have right now on staff, this is too small. It doesn't accommodate everyone in there. If you look at the numbers and you look at what, I think we're projected to be, we projected at 2021 to have 55 members at the end of 2021, which is next year. So they don't even fit into this building. So it's already deemed too small. So I think we need to look bigger, people, and we need to go with our original plan for the future. I don't know, maybe my granddaughter wants to be a firefighter. I don't want to tell her no, because we don't have a facility that's going to accommodate her.
Thank you. Councillor McLeod.
Yes, one thing that Mr. Colassa and everybody else has failed to mention is all of the fire halls that we went to tour and went through were all had full-time firefighters. So there was a reason to have a chief or a deputy chief or whoever in the building, because there was always somebody in the building. This building is empty. They're going to be the only two people in there. You're going to keep heat, lights, and power on in this building for two people. And believe me, the lights will be on and the temperature will be, or the air conditioning will be turned down. It doesn't make sense.
But if I may, but again, that's just looking at today or tomorrow or next year. There's 5 million people projected to be in the Golden Horseshoe, more, 5 million by 2050. We are going to see growth. We are going to see lots more housing here. And therefore, you may end up in 20 years with a number of full-time people. That's my whole thing. I don't want to build it for next week. I want to build it for 20 and 30 years so that the money that we spend now, the extra $300,000-$400,000 we spend now will mean nothing in 20 and 30 years when this building is paid for and it's still productive and moving forward as an excellent building. So that's what my thing has been all along. I don't know how many times in my own personal life I've bought something for today and a year later go, I wish I'd bought the better one because this one is not serving my needs. And I just see that with this fire hall. Like, we're building it for today, not for the future. So, Councillor Gilmore.
Okay, so again, we're going to grow. I'll take you at your thing that in 5 years' time, we're going to grow and we're going to need full-time firefighters. This hall, option 1, does not fit. There's no place to put a bedroom. If we grow, we are going to have to build an additional to this anyway. We're not building bedrooms in this. We're not building sleeping quarters. It doesn't matter what option we pick. It doesn't happen. What you're saying, it doesn't happen. We're not building it that big. So unless we're going to put a second story up there and leave it vacant, this doesn't work.
Mr. Colassa.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and again, just in response to the comment from the councillor regarding full-time, we did visit a number of municipalities, but not all of them are full-time firefighting personnel. So, for example, we visited Lincoln, which we visited the substation on Mountain Road in Camden, and we also visited another substation in Jordan itself. Again, the Mountain Road location, there was limited office space, but the Jordan station did have office space in it without full-time fire protective personnel. There was a fire chief and a deputy chief and some fire prevention officers, but they're all working out of the Beamsville station, which we did not visit. Likewise, I believe we visited the Pelham stations. I don't believe that they are full-time. I believe they are volunteer service as well, but like the Wainfleet Fire Department, they have a full-time chief and a deputy chief, that sort of personnel, but they're operating out of their station as opposed to out of their town hall. I'm thinking that Port Colborne is the only station or the only municipality that had the full-time fire contingent with full-time paid protection personnel. And again, we went through that station fairly quickly. I'm trying to think, Fort Erie, I think it's a mixed service. Again, we saw their office space is quite significant. And what other municipality did we visit? West Lincoln, I'm sorry, West Lincoln. They are a volunteer service, very comparable to our own, and the chief and deputy chief, I think, operate out of their station, as we saw. So again, admittedly, there are stations that are a mix of full-time fire protection personnel and non, but literally all the stations we went to did have accommodations for office, specific offices, office space for administrative purposes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cridlin, you've been fairly quiet there. Anything you're interested in contributing?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I guess I'm not hearing that we had like Councillor Gilmore's point about just addressing, step one, step two. If we don't have offices, then the CAO has provided, a very high level, what that might trigger. I wish there were, I wish we were maybe more in agreement with where we might take this next. If it's about looking at washrooms, I do see that we reduced it by a slight bit in the for the female washroom, and if that's a deal breaker, then I think there was 100 square feet or 17 square feet or whatever that was to have the second shower. We're looking at trying to take this down to a level that is enough. So I'm not changing much other than what the motion that's on the table. That sounds like something I would probably be able to support. If we wanted to tweak it by adding the extra shower back in, I'd be fine with that too. I'm not seeing the office space, so maybe a little more discussion on that. Maybe Councillor Gilmore could chime in again on the office space and more thoughts that he has after hearing from the CAO. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Van Vliet, your hand was up again.
Yeah, I do. Through you, Mr. Mayor. 2 points I want to make. The office staff, like I said before, should be where all the equipment is, they need to have one space, right? I believe they need to have one space. I've seen them run around trying to go from here, over there, and get everything together. Same with the training officer. And as far as training goes, it's been mentioned that there's going to be nobody in this building. That building is used 40 times a year, plus on the weekends, plus every other special occasion for training. So it's not going to sit empty. And I have to go back to the fact that option 8 is too small going in with our current staff. I don't even know what option I'm on now anymore. Option 9, removing fads, removed I don't know how many square feet, but it's only $157,000 difference between these two options. Like, we really need to think about that. We are not saving millions of dollars anywhere. It is just not going to happen. Like, I honestly don't know what we're arguing about anymore. I mean, we approved this one, which is, actually, this is option 9, so we haven't approved this, but this is the fads taken out of option 9, which for me seems to be workable and meets exactly what our needs are. And again, January 20th, we did that needs assessment, and I think really we owe it to our firefighters. They have done everything we have asked them for, everything. I mean, and we aren't giving back to them. And I think that really, don't even know if everybody's aware, when it came to renegotiating their contract, none of them asked for a raise because we're going to be building this building. So they kind of figured, you know what, in concession, kind of, sort of, we'll do that because they're building this building. So, you know what, I don't know how much this is affecting the morale that we can't decide on a building that we already know what we wanted it to be in January. We all decided on it. We all approved the budget. We all approved everything and then went sideways in the spring. And I'm sorry, we're not going to blame COVID, because I have quotes in here from people who said just because it's COVID, we can't stop making decisions. And we approved the budget post-COVID. So that doesn't work with me, but I think we owe it to our firefighters to give them what they need to work. That's essentially what it comes down to. We have to give them what they need to work, and we're not giving them that.
Thank you. And I strongly echo Councillor Van Vliet's comments there. I've heard from the firefighters as well, a few of them that I've spoken with, and they're concerned. They just want to have an adequate building that's like every other fire hall in the country, that they can work in for the future and be safe, the cancer issues, all that sort of thing. So I can clearly echo Councillor Van Vliet's comments. So we have that motion on the floor. If we feel that we need to do something different with that motion, we could vote on it. It could be defeated. And then you could forward another motion for discussion and carry on like that. That's a process, because right now the motion is option 8 plus 500 square feet, period. That is the option, the motion. So Councillor Cridlin mentioned about another shower in a woman's washroom, or making that bigger. That would be something else that we would need to, another motion on that to come back. If you wanted to defeat the one, we can put that one back on, or add on some more to the bathroom, do this. It's a process here. So that's one step. Mr. Colossi had your hand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and again, I don't want to be out of order, but we've been talking about office space, and I've tried to respond about staff needs for that sort of thing and what we've seen in other municipalities. Could I ask if the fire chief's on the line? Perhaps he can provide some comments on that, as well, as he's the one who, as I said from the outset, I'm sort of attempting to pick up the reins on this, but the chief has been working on this since shortly after starting with the township, and has probably much more information and knowledge that he might be able to share regarding the need for the office space than I can. So I make that offer if the chief could be allowed to speak to that.
I certainly, we could have the chief chime in on this. Chief? Just trying to connect with him. Can't get him. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Mr. Mayor. Oh, I don't know if they can hear me.
Is everybody there? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, my iPad crashed. Sorry about that. All right, is Councillor McClellan back in?
Yep.
Excellent. All right, so with regards to the fire halls that we toured, we did attend 5 different fire departments. Only Port Colborne has career firefighters, and they carry a crew of 2 for their career truck. Every other fire department that we visited is solely volunteer. With that said, of the 12 municipalities in Niagara region, every fire department has their fire chief work at their central station, their headquarters. With regards to the remaining space, it needs the 2 truck bays and the remaining training room that's there is only about 1,800 square feet. So it's really not a lot that's left. And remember that, as the CAO stated, EMS will eventually look for space. They can't keep running with that truck outside. The library has expressed interest in expanding. And we also know through the accessibility audit that the community hall does not have accessible washrooms. And I can't speak to how big they need to be, but that 1,800 square feet is going to get chewed up pretty quick. So when we look at the history of the decisions that Wainfleet has made with regards to fire services, and I'll use the example of buying a used budget rental truck with 350,000 kilometers on it and throwing a tanker on it and saying, there you go, there's your fire tanker. That is an unprofessional response to a fire and life safety operation. And unfortunately, we're making that same mentality to this is, well, if we save a little bit here and we save a little bit here and we kind of do our own hybrid, we're never doing it right. And that's this whole project right from day one was to correct the wrongs of the past and adequately prepare the township for the foreseeable future. And I mean, when we're talking about option 9, we're not just talking about offices. We've cut out the association space. We've cut out the meeting space. Those are those private meeting rooms that are needed for those post-incident reviews, for the mental health debriefings. To not be able to have staff meet privately in breakout rooms, and even the workspace that's there, there's no doors on it. So it's open to where in option 8 with the 3 workspaces, it's open to the hallway. I mean, yeah, we could throw a door in there and that fixes that. I guess what I'm getting at is for the money that's saved, and I understand the mentality that, the building cost was going to be linear in nature. 300 and some square feet by X number of square feet, we save $1 million. But unfortunately, we're at that point where no matter what we do in site services, general elements, all of that, there's $1 million right off the hop, whether it's 3,000 square feet or 15,000 square feet. There's more to the space than just cost. There's the expectations and the priorities that have been set. And I just, before we lose sight of where we were a year ago, I just wanted to bring all that back. And I mean, certainly the office space, we're only talking about the deputies in my office. That's it. And Councillor Van Vliet's right. It's 300 square feet. That affects the administrative end of things. But there's all the other space that has been cut from the firefighters. And I think that's what we've lost sight on. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gilmore has a question of you, Morgan.
Sorry.
Through your mayor to the chief. Morgan, would you be amenable to reducing the apparatus space from 6 to 4?
As it stands now, we have 5 pieces of equipment to put in that hall the day we open.
And they're coming from, one from Wenger and how many from Station 2?
So we will be required, remember, under fire underwriters, a station is required to have at minimum a pumper and a tanker. So right now, neither of those stations have that. What Station 2, the one in the village here, has is our rescue. So right off the hop, we're going to need a pumper, a tanker, the rescue. We need a spot for the UTV because I doubt Public Works is going to want that stored there forever because it doesn't make sense because it's in the middle of nowhere right now and only I have access after hours. And then the last piece of that is the reserve pump. And if you have 1 to 5 pumpers, you have to have a reserve for when there's breakdown. So you still have coverage. As it stands right now, we do not have a reserve pumper. Further to that, the truck that's currently at Station 2 is 21 years old and is no longer recognized for insurance purposes. And the truck that's at Station 1 has a 420-gallon pump, which isn't recognized as a Class A pump. So Burnaby and Wellandport is our only two recognized fire stations, and cutting, and I'm sorry, this is a long answer to what should have been a simple question. If we cut those bays down, we are at max capacity the day we open.
Go ahead, Councilor Gilmore.
Thanks for the answer. Mayor, I'd move that we have a 5-minute recess.
Okay, we'll have a 5-minute recess.
I agree with that.
Okay, we'll call our council meeting back into session. I think we're still on discussion. Option 8 was a motion on the floor with an addition of 500 square feet added to it. And I think Councillor Van Vliet had her hand up to go next. Councillor Van Vliet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a simple question for my colleagues. I want to know what the opposition is to what our original concept was. What changed? Like, we said we wanted this, we said we needed this, and now we said we don't need this, now we don't want this. But for months and months and months, that's what we said we needed, and all of a sudden now we don't. So we can't downsize anymore, because I just heard that in 2015, we had 5 female firefighters. So, like, going smaller doesn't make sense, because we're going to walk in the door and have to add on. That is like building a house right now, but let's not build a kitchen right now, because we might not be able to afford it. We'll afford it in 5 years. We'll just use the barbecue and wash the dishes in the laundry sink, and then we'll add that on when it comes. Here's my point. We know what the cost is right now. We know what the cost is for this whole entire building. We have no clue what the cost is going to be in 4 or 5 years. So as we are handcuffed right now by councils that could not make decisions in the past, we are going to handcuff councils of the future because we didn't make a decision. I don't like that.
Councillor McClellan.
Okay, so to answer my colleague's question. Yeah, my mic's on. Okay. So to answer my colleague's question, there was a needs assessment made. And as you all know, I've argued about this all the way through. I voted for it and said that it would go and there'd be a time when we'd get this all straightened out, which is coming to now. And, you know, I could have argued and gone off on tangents at that time, but I just said, okay, let's see where this goes, let's see where it goes. But you all know my feelings, it was too big. I've made that clear from the get-go. And, you know, there's still things in here that I think are too big. Doesn't matter. Option 8, 9, the 9,800 square foot one, whatever it is, like I say, I think that one's maybe even a little too small because I think they cut some more than what I had originally asked for, but that's okay. That's why I put the motion out that we go that far. Believe me, I'm ready to make a decision tonight. It's not that I'm afraid to make a decision. And there's a couple of fundamental things in here that I think are too big, that we don't need as much of. Obviously, some of you feel very strongly the other way. So that's my answer on this. As the gentleman said, I sat on that committee for 4 years. I wanted a fire hall built. We couldn't get a council at the time that could get it done. And we had a CAO that went behind and did things on his own and put things out for tender all on his own. And none of us were there that knew about it. He asked for things that probably shouldn't have been in there. Some of those buildings came in extremely large. But anyway, that's all water under the bridge. But that is what I got a needs assessment told to me by what our fire chief says he needs. I too get phone calls and emails from firefighters that tell me, you're on the right path, don't go that far. I promise not to mention their names. I actually forgot their names. I don't want to remember their names. But, so that's where I'm coming from on this. But I'm ready to make a decision tonight and get it done, or we can see where we go on this.
Well, I'm hoping that by the end of the night, we have made a resolution and passed a motion, because we need to get an RFP started here quick. If, you know, winter's not that long, you know, March, April, we could start working on the building. So there's a process that needs to get done. And just as a point also, I was talking with one of our firefighters during the break, and at one time there were 5 females on the fire team. So that was 5 and 6 years ago. There were a total of 5. So even if you look at those numbers, the female bathroom is very inadequate in this new building. So, Councillor Van Vliet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor McClellan. Actually, the needs assessment you did approve, and you said it was good.
I understand that. I
Okay,
said
we're
that
not
all the way
arguing.
along.
I have the floor.
Just wait.
So you
her
did
finish.
approve the needs assessment, just as every other councillor here did. We approved the needs assessment. We approved the budget. We approved the floor plan. We've approved everything, and then all of a sudden we need it to be smaller. If we do it smaller, we are not going to be giving our firefighters what they need. It's already too small going in at option 8. We can't grow. Like the township will not be able to grow. I've been down this road before. I have lived here almost my whole entire life. Every time something is built in this township, let's build it just a little bit and then we'll add a little bit more as we can afford it or as we can't afford it. Like I said before, we are looking at number 3 roof that we're going to be putting on this building at the upcoming budget because it wasn't done right. So we have the opportunity right now to do something right for our township and for the future, and most of all, for our firefighters who have done everything for us. So all we're trying to do is give them adequate workspace. You know, if one of them has a problem and they want to talk to the fire chief or talk to somebody, do you know where they talk to them right now? Like, I don't know where. In this new fire station, they have the space where they can have, you know, space to be alone, downtime. I don't want to do their job. I don't want to go to an accident scene and maybe that be somebody that I know. They have to decompress. There's so many issues around us that we're not thinking of. Two of the communities we're leaving out is one, our community, the Township of Wainfleet, and what people want. And the other one is our firefighters. I don't think we're not giving them what they need, and we're not giving our community what we need. Yep. All you have to do is look at the buildings around this township. Like, my garage is bigger than all 4 of our stations. So I can't, like, it's just mind-boggling to me how we can't agree on this station.
So we're at a point, that motion is on the floor, so there's a number of options that we can do here. The motion could be rescinded, and we could have further discussion. Another motion could come forward on a different one of the other buildings. There could be friendly amendments entertained. If councillors wish to make friendly amendments to it, that can be debated back and forth, or of course, a vote on it. So that's where we are right now, and unless there's any more just free discussion, Councillor Cridlin, nothing. Councillor Gilmore, Councillor, okay. Is there any more discussion? Okay, friendly amendments. Councillor Van Vliet.
Well, I would like to make a friendly amendment that we switch and go with option 9. I know it's not friendly, but it's as friendly as I can get tonight.
Yeah, you can't, all we can do is ask for amendments to the motion on the floor. So that's not a friendly amendment. It's a good Councillor, Mr. Kalasa.
So, and again, just for recollection, the motion on the floor is option 8 plus 500 square feet. And again, not specifically included in the motion, but as referenced, put back space into the apparatus bay that was lost, and the remainder goes into the training room. So that's what I heard. I just want to confirm that's the sort of option 8 that's on the floor right now.
Councillor McCollum.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I think Councillor Cridlin asked for 1 extra stall in the shower room for the women's showers, so that would come out of that little bit of space, that training room space. Shower isn't that big. So,
or add that on.
or add it onto it.
Councillor Cridlin, you're...
At that matter, it doesn't matter for the size of it. It's not.
Yeah, you want to add on, not just take it from somewhere else, to make the female facilities more adequate for more than 2 firefighters, 2 female firefighters. Can you speak to that, please? Councillor Cridlin, can you hear me? Can you speak to that?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yes, I guess if that's a friendly amendment, I would support adding back. I think what we had, if I look at what happened to the nothing was changed with the male washrooms, and the female washrooms were cut drastically. So considering that we could add some square footage back to that area, that would be great.
So when you say some square footage, we
Well,
need to
at
be,
least the one shower, it looks like the shower stalls were cut in half, so double those back up.
okay, is that a friendly amendment, Councillor McClellan?
Yeah.
That you can accept?
Yep.
Okay, so that amendment is made. Councillor Van Vliet?
Sorry, I'm just going to say two more things. So by adding back the bathroom on, we're just adding more cost on because that's where your cost comes from plumbing. We all know that. And the other one is if we don't build this to what our firefighters need right now, and we're going to have to add on in 5 years, which we all know, just sitting here, we know, we might as well be just telling the township right now, heads up, your taxes are going to be going up because we know this is going to cost way more money in 5 years. So there's your heads up.
Okay, Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, just let me get this right. So we go to option 9. Let me get this right. So the men's washroom has 2 toilets and 2 urinals and 2 showers. And the ladies' washroom is going to have 2 showers and 2 washrooms in it. You know, we have 5 ladies. We have 15 people at this station. Doesn't really seem that off if you put the second shower in, right? It's not that big a deal, and that's, Councilor Crinlin said it, and I think they're gonna be just fine.
You've accepted the friendly amendment,
I
though?
did. I'm
Okay,
just
so
making
that is on the books,
a
that
note of
friendly
that.
amendment. Well, you have that. Okay, so your point, or are you just making that clarification?
So, again, on any of these, one of the things that, and I hate to go back and do this, but on any of these rooms that we have, when we did the walkthrough of all the fire halls, one of the things that was brought up, we need to have clean rooms. We got to keep the dirty stuff out and the clean in. Every single one of these, you walk in dirty and go into the clean building, you walk in dirty, go into the washroom and change room and take your dirty clothes off and go there. You know, I look at this and I'm just looking at some of this stuff, and, you know, you should be able to walk out of the bunker gear room into the men's room and out of the bunker gear room into the ladies' room, and then when you leave there, you shower, change, and your clean clothes go out into the building, and you're not walking down the hallway with contaminated. I mean, I'm trying to remember everything that was told to us. That was one of the things, and I keep looking at this and saying, how come you told me this, but you didn't do it when you put it in the drawings? Like, I remember clearly that was one of the things. So somewhere we got to do a little more redesigning on this here, interior-wise, not space-wise, but just the layout.
Mr. Klossa?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I wonder if the chief might be able to respond to that.
Yeah, I remember that clearly being said.
Yeah, so I mean, in all of the designs, the apparatus bay layout remains the same, with the bunker gear room adjacent to or closest to the admin side. If you see, there is a central door. That is the delineation point between dirty, contaminated space and clean space. Bunker gear never goes past that door. So if you notice, there is a washroom down in the back corner. That is the dirty washroom, if you will, where members who are in their bunker gear can quickly go to the washroom. They dress down, their bunker gear goes into the extractor. They've eliminated all of the gross contaminants. That allows them to go on and shower and change and everything else. That's that delineation point. At no point do you need to have the showers attached to the bunker gear room, and no fire station we toured had that either.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, clarified it, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Gilmore?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Steve, if I trust you're still with us. Just a question on timing for request for proposal, pricing. What's the timeline going forward from now, 2 weeks from now, as far as when we would get some information? Should we Should we agree on one option or the other?
Well, I believe it was passed previously that you're now going to be hiring a project manager, so that would need to be the first thing that would need to be done. And then that project manager would have to get up to speed, and then they would basically be put in charge of putting out the RFP, I would believe. So that might take, 4 to 5 months, and then having a month for having an RFP, hiring another consulting team. So you'd probably be looking at tendering either late 2021, early 2022. Just for reference, West Lincoln had an RFP out for a new station a few weeks ago. It closed last week, and their schedule, they don't have a project manager. Their fire chief is running the project, and they're scheduled to start construction next summer.
You're done, Councilor Gill. Steve, is it normal just for a fire building to be built with a project manager, or is it generally, what is your experience, or what's done generally in Ontario?
I'd say the majority do not have project managers. Even smaller municipalities like your own, like Grimsby, for example, when we worked with them, they had somebody from the fire department. When we did West Lincoln's headquarters, Chief Fisher was the person in charge, along with the CAO for assistance. In my recollection, we have never worked on a job that had a project manager, and I believe the only one currently going is the one in Welland. And we did not bid on that because it was, how do I put it? It was not done fairly to the local people. So it adds cost and it adds time. So that's why most municipalities don't go that way.
Okay. So
this is not a very complicated building, and I believe that the fire chief and CAO definitely have enough capabilities to handle this project.
And you made the comment of 4 or 5 months before it would even go out to RFP?
Well, when you're bringing in a project manager, depending on the firm, like an MHPM or some other type of a project management firm, they would need to start from square one again and go through all this process. And there would be lots of deliberations and meetings, and they would need to basically start again from square one.
So, and
whereas
also,
if you decided right now, okay, we agree on whether it's option 8, option 9, or option 10, you could go out and take this and basically bundle it up, put it out for an RFP in the next few weeks, and hire a consulting firm probably January, February of the new year, and be in the ground probably late summer.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Van Vliet.
Sorry, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, Mr.
No,
Mayor.
it's good.
But it just seems like every time we make a decision or give direction, we're adding thousands and thousands of dollars to the cost of something that wasn't that much, but we've added how much in consultant fees now? Like $110,000, or I'd have to look the number up. And then adding a project manager, and now we're going to have a time delay. We just need to go forward with this. I mean, the chief knew exactly what he was doing, and now we can't talk to the chief about the project because we have to talk to Will about it, who has to talk to the chief because Will's not a firefighter. So we have made a kind of simple issue huge that doesn't need to be. We're a small community. We decided to build this fire station, and now it has blown up. And it hasn't blown up within the community. It's only blown up within this room. I mean, go ask anybody what they think. They'll tell you, what are you waiting for? Like, just build it. We understand. We all read the budget. We know what we're in for. Our people are well educated. They're well informed. There might be 15, 20 keyboard warrior out there who are arguing, and sometimes amongst themselves, but this is what we agreed on. So I'm totally mind blown why we can't go forward. For me, it's a simple process. We decided to build this. We agreed to build this. This is what our firefighters need. This is what our fire chief said would work for us. Like, I'm sorry. It's just blowing my mind completely that we agreed on everything and now we don't.
Okay, and just from that, I have one more question of the architect. I have no idea what a project manager would cost for something like this. In your experience, or I guess, what would it cost for us to hire a project manager to get this building built?
Just in doing some research online, and basically that's all I could do in short of calling up people and, giving them all the information. The numbers we were coming up with were anywhere from 100,000 to 200,000, depending on how much involvement they have. So I have a number of 150 carried in the cost estimates.
So an additional $150,000 added on to the cost of any building we'd build here because council elected to hire a project manager, when your experience is that the fire chief and our CAO could successfully get this building built and save us that much money.
Absolutely. We've done it in many other municipalities without a problem.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McClellan.
I have a question for Steve.
Mm-hmm.
On all these other fire halls you did, your base bid, how much did they overrun? I know Pelham went way over to the point they've ended up dismissing the fire chief. I don't want to do that. I want to make sure this comes in at the bid price and it doesn't run over. So can you tell me how much the rest of them went?
Well, in regards to Pelham, I don't know where you got that information, but that's not correct. And I don't have all of the paperwork in front of me. Obviously, there are cost overruns. Some are due to municipalities adding things in. Some are due to site conditions. There's a whole myriad of items that could cause cost overruns, but that's why we have contingency allowances in there.
Councillor Van Vliet.
Just looking at the numbers, so option 8 with a project manager costs more than option 9 will without a project manager. And option 9 is not the full size we asked for, but it's the full size we almost agreed on, and we took fads out. So we're throwing good money after bad here.
And one other point too, if I may, according to Steve, we're looking at, I think he said 4 or 5 months before we even get started, the delay of the project. My understanding is inflationary costs right now in construction are like 5, 6, 7% annually. So you can add on another $50,000 or $100,000 to that by having that project manager. So we virtually have, through clumsiness, we're spending way more money than we should be. If we were lean and efficient and got this done quickly and get it done, get the paperwork signed, contracts done, we'd probably be saving our Wainfleet taxpayers a couple of $100,000. That's how I see it. And I'm with Councillor Van Vliet. It bothers me that such a simple thing is so convoluted here. It's a simple thing. It's just a fire hall. They're built everywhere all the time. Everybody builds them. It's a standard fire hall. I don't know why we're complicating it so much. And by complicating it, we're adding on hundreds of thousands of dollars to the taxpayer. And we're also telling our firefighters that, we're more concerned about saving $100,000 or $200,000 than we are about their safety and their ability to do the job. So I'm very, not upset, but it doesn't make any sense to me what we're doing. We need to just make a decision, choose the proper building, and move forward. This project manager is going to cost us a bunch of money. It's going to cost the taxpayers of Wainfleet quite a bit more money, unnecessarily, in my opinion. So that's my comments. Councillor McCullough.
So, sir, through you, if you get the right project manager, I don't think this is going to take 5 months to get somebody there. I don't believe that at all. The other thing is, he'll keep track of the costs, and there'll be no extras, because he'll write the spec the right way. The problem is, and I see the architect laughing, but I can tell you, if you write the spec the right way, there's no extras. We've got a soils report. We've got everything we need. There's nothing here that he can go back and say, oh, change conditions. If we do our homework right, the thing goes out and there's no extras. And that's what I want to make sure is we don't approve $4.5 million or $5 million or $6 million if that's what the price comes in, and then find out we get a bill of $500,000 more or $750,000 more because nobody was watching the purse strings. And that's where the problem lies.
But that's what our CAO is going to do. He will be watching the purse strings.
So the question is, does he understand construction enough to know if it's a legitimate extra or not? Is he an engineer? Has he done this? That's not what he does for a living. He's a CAO.
We do have a person who has built a fire hall before, in our fire chief, who we trust. I trust him. He knows his job is on the line. He knows that he has said, I will do A, B, C, D, and that's it. And he knows that. He's not going to play games and start trying to sneak in this and that. I trust this. Our fire chief is excellent. And our fire department is excellent. I trust them. So to me, the project manager, by us voting on that, we've just cost the taxpayers of Wainfleet a whole whack of money that they don't have to pay. And that bothers me because we all know the dollars are tight and we need to spend the money efficiently. And hiring a project manager for something we don't need is not responsible on our part. That's my feelings. Councillor Van Vliet, you had your hand up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to agree with you. With all due respect, Councillor McCullen, you don't have a degree in engineering or an architect either. So our fire chief has built a fire hall before. I do have faith in him. Again, we're going backwards, and I can see Stevens looking at us going, why are you people not deciding? Like, this is an easy question. Like, why are we going backwards? We agreed on this, to build this, to give this to our firefighters, and we're not giving it to them. We're not giving it to our community that has asked for it for 17 years. I said it before, my garage is bigger than our fire stations. And it's not like there's no bells, there's no whistles, there's no fluff. It's a fire station. There's nothing extra in here. Nobody's building a legacy hall. My legacy is my family. It's not anything that I build here. Like, that's a null point.
Councillor Cridlin, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. It's something that I think got touched on before, but I'm just going to revisit it. This facility, again, when I listened to the delegations, it seemed to suggest there was, or I might have misheard, that there's some public use to it. And maybe it's just semantics. Obviously, it's all public use because it's for the fire infrastructure. But as far as the public's concerned, none of this facility is going to be for public access. This isn't this isn't like our current community fire hall, where we do all these, community type events. This is all to be for the sole use of the fire department. Can I confirm that again? If that's my understanding. When I listened again to the delegation, it kind of threw some doubt on that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll look to our CAO to speak to that, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and either Morgan or the architect, if they're still online, can confirm this, but your assumption is correct. My understanding is we have not designed it to full public occupancy standards, and it will be used for fire department administration uses and fire department uses only.
Councillor Cridlin, anything further? Okay, thank you. All right, any other discussion? The motion is on the floor. The motion is option 8 with 500 square feet and additional shower stall for the women. That is the option that is on the floor. We have discussed it, we've debated it. As I said, there are options here. We can vote it down and carry on with other options. We can have it rescinded by the motion maker, which I don't think will happen, and friendly amendments. So if that is all done, there's no other further questions. Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to know if we can get a hard number on either of these numbers and decide on the project manager after the fact. Like, we just said we're going to name one. We haven't picked anybody, you know. Maybe it'll be Councillor Van Vliet will be the project manager. Maybe it'll be whoever. But, like, I'd still like to have, like, I think that I could live with option 9 if I actually had a hard number that was a number, rather than all these numbers that are estimates. Some of these estimates are bugging me a little bit. I mean, there's lots of things that are bugging me, but we haven't. We said we want to name a project manager. Okay, so we'll name one, and maybe. And who knows who that's going to be. I'd like to know, why can't we get a, do we have to wait till we name one to get a quote? I guess that'd be a question for Steve.
Yeah, Steve, can you speak to that, please?
Sure. Well, when you're mentioning now just naming, one of the counselors to be a project manager, that's completely different than hiring a professional project management firm. I guess that should have been clarified. Maybe that's my mistake. I would assumed you would be going out to hire a project management firm to run the project on the township's behalf. Am I incorrect?
Yeah, no, I think your assumption is largely correct. So, but does that preclude us from getting from getting a quote on the drawings that we have now and on option 9? That's my more direct question.
Well, if you would be proceeding with hiring a project manager, they would need to get involved before it goes out so they can have their input on how the RFP is written, basically, because they'd be acting on your behalf. And like Councillor McClellan described, they would be noting construction budgets and everything else that needed to be followed based on township direction. So it's the chicken and the egg. They would have to be hired first, and discussions would have to happen, meetings would have to happen to be able to get a more complete package together for to go out for the consultants to bid on.
And so, and that's where that 4 or 5 months comes in, Steve, which...
Yeah, just based on, that's just completely an estimate, yeah.
Yeah, of course. But again, adding to inflationary costs, et cetera, just more. Go ahead, Terry.
Through you, Mayor. Okay, so let's say hypothetically we decide, okay, we're not going to hire a project manager. These drawings that we've got in front of us can go out in 2 weeks?
If you have an RFP, I shouldn't say this out of turn, but you could almost take what the West Lincoln just put out and have these drawings sort of appended to that, and that would be enough for everybody to bid on. West Lincoln's was out for a few weeks. I think they had 2 little addendums. I had some questions, and I think one other firm did, and I think they got 7 submissions last week. And they're ready to award, I think, in the next couple of weeks and get started.
Funny you mentioned West Lincoln. I find it a little hard to believe that none of us around the table heard anything about what West Lincoln was doing at any time when we could have partnered with them. Like, I'm struggling a bit with that, but I guess that's another issue. So I'm just trying to get clear in my mind again. We could, in theory, send one of these options out in 2, 3, 4 weeks' time if we change our mind on the project manager. Is that exactly what you're saying?
Correct. West Lincoln's went out basically with all of the information you gave me back in March. Basically, these are the areas we need. Give us a price. So all of this design study, they basically cut that out. They just went right to the consultants based on what their needs assessment was. And that's typical.
Well, it sure would have been good to know that. that they were going to do this. And I still can't believe that either at the CAO level or the fire chief level that there was zero discussion about the fact that West Lincoln was building a fire station very similar to ours. When, if we want to talk about economies of scale and saving money, there would have been a good opportunity. However, I don't know where we need to go from here, but we need to go somewhere.
Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is going to go to Steve, and I haven't asked, and I don't know. Are those tender results open to the public yet?
No, they're not.
Any idea when that will happen?
I believe the date that they had in their RFP was, I think it said early January. But I think they have to wait for a council meeting, so I'm not 100% sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Cridland. Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just building on Councillor Gilmore's request and details. I think I heard that you could actually attach both of these, 9 and 8, and that wouldn't be prohibitive for going forward with the next step. Is that realistic, or is that a mistake in your opinion?
Steve?
You could do 2, but then you'd be getting quotes based on 2 different options. So when you're issuing for consultants, it should be based on one option, or base bid is, like, say, option 8, and what is the extra cost if we decide to go to option 9? And then you can see what the price difference is for consulting fees.
And what does that cost additional in doing that extra work, just to give those quotes?
Oh, not much from our end.
Okay.
No.
Councillor Van Vliet?
So essentially, if we took a project manager out of the equation completely, and if we went with the size that we decided on in January, it would only cost us $49,000 extra dollars. Is that what I'm looking at? Let's go with option 9, take the project manager out to get the size that equals our needs assessment.
And then that would also negate the need for the additional consulting fees, which I did have in there as well, too.
So
Because typically,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but if we went with if we went with option 9, we'd essentially be saving money and getting the size that matches our needs assessment and giving our firefighters what they need.
correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just a little confused here. I just want to clarify. You're saying that by going with option 8, it costs us more money than by going with option 9, which is the adequate building that we want, and option 9 is actually cheaper than option 8? Is that what I'm hearing?
I believe what Councillor was mentioning is if you deleted the project manager option.
Okay, so, well then for the public out there and everybody, if we eliminated the project manager, it actually costs us less money to build the proper fire station and more money to build the inadequate fire station. Is that what I'm hearing?
If you keep the project manager on, correct.
Well, that makes it pretty simple in my mind, but...
But again, I have to clarify if you're talking project management firm versus assigning somebody in that room as the project manager. Those are 2 different things. And I think that needs to be clarified.
Okay, Councillor, I think Councillor Van Vliet, or John, you had your hand up first?
Yeah, there's
Sorry,
a
Terry.
couple.
Councillor McClellan.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. There's a couple of things here on this estimate for option 8. There's a line in here for masonry, veneer, brick archways and blocks for $164,800. It doesn't show up in option 1.
I'm sorry, which cost estimate are you looking at?
So I'm looking at cost estimate for option 8, and it was under masonry, veneer, brick arches and blocks. It's $164,880. And when I go up to 1, I had this on the other at home, and I'm sorry I left it bloody thing on the desk, but,
No, I know the answer to this one. It's fairly simple.
yeah.
Option 1 was when we were looking at mostly metal siding, and option 8 is an expansion of option number 7 when we decided to go completely masonry veneer. So that's why it's more expensive. And then as I think Morgan mentioned earlier, for option number 9, we decided to cut some costs by going back to the metal siding option, which would look more like the rendering done for option number 1.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Van Vliet and then Councillor Gilmore.
I was actually going to answer Councillor McClellan's question, because those were all the bells and whistles we picked in option 7 that got eliminated in option 9.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gilmore.
Just to clarify my comment about appointing Councillor Van Vliet, it's totally in jest. So, or anybody else for that matter. I want to ask the clerk, I've got an idea, but I need to know whether we can set this motion on the table, whether we have to vote it down before I speak about another one. We can't have 2 on the floor. So or I could ask Councillor McClellan to withdraw it, but just let me know procedurally where I should go.
Does Councillor want to speak first?
Yeah, the options are to withdraw it, or we have to vote on it. So if Councillor McClellan wishes to withdraw it, then Councillor McClellan.
I can withdraw it through you, Mr. Mayor. I can withdraw it. Let's hear what Councillor Gilmore has to say, and I'll put it back on the table if...
Okay, so the motion with option 8, the 500 square feet and the additional shower, that motion has now been withdrawn by Councillor McClellan. And so there are no motions on the floor at this time. And next discussion. Councillor Gilmore.
Okay, well, there's 2 things. The first thing that I want to do is find out can we reconsider the motion to appoint a project manager at this meeting, or does that have to come to the 15th?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with leave of council, I would suggest this meeting was called specifically to deal with the fire hall. You're all here. You knew you were here to discuss those issues. Unless there's an objection from a councillor, if any member objects to that, then I would suggest notice be given and it be dealt with. But if there are no objections, it would be my recommendation, proceed. I mean, let's get it done.
Okay,
So, Councillor Gilmore, you want to put that motion
through you,
on?
Mayor, then I would like to, at this point, at least temporarily reconsider the motion to appoint a outside project manager, and then we'll see where that goes, and then I'll talk some more.
Okay, so that's the motion moved, seconded by Councillor Van Vliet. Is there any discussion on that? Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I could go with that provided we hire a qualified person to look after this build for the town. So we hire an engineer to look after it for us, or somebody of that nature that works directly. So we sign a contract with him to look after it. So, and he's with the understanding there are no extras. We get this done.
Or her.
Or her.
Yep.
Or whoever. But I don't have a problem with that. I just want somebody, and I know Morgan's built another fire hall.
Okay.
I've built a bunch of stuff.
The motion on the floor is to rescind the project manager, and at this time, and that is the motion in its entirety. And so if there's any discussion more regarding that, Councillor McClellan.
So I want what I put in as a friendly amendment to that.
Councillor Gilmore.
I'm not sure it's friendly. I'm not opposed to it. I just think that we can take that step. We can take that step if we so choose immediately after we get some concrete numbers and decide where we're going. Okay. So no, I'm not opposed. It muddies this one. I'd rather keep this one clean. We'll definitely talk about that. I know exactly where you're going, but the chief wants to speak.
Okay, Chief.
Thank you. I think if it's about managing risk and the potential for cost overruns, that is the purpose of the consultant firm that's hired. In liaising with the internal team, they are the ones that manage the project through. They deal with all of the CCDC contracts. They develop the tenders. They work with the GCs. And from an internal team perspective, regardless of the one fire hall I've been involved with, I was a contractor in a previous life. I have built homes almost as big as option 8. And I've taken a project management course through Humber College. So I think these are all pieces that are missing in providing information for this decision.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. CAO, you wanted to speak.
And again, just to build on that, Mr. Mayor, through you, if you review the original motion or original proposal that was originally presented back in the summer, the next step would be the request for proposal to undertake the selection of a firm for the design, engineering, and contract management of the project. And that contract management element of it, if you will, I think closely mirrors the whole project management element that I think you're debating right now. So there is that sort of responsibility that comes with the external firm that you're looking at acquiring expertise from in that first stage. And again, unless the architect has anything to add, I just throw that out for discussion.
Okay, so Councillor Gilmore's motion is on the floor. If there's no further discussion, we'll take a recorded vote, and the motion is to rescind the project manager motion that was approved previously. So either in favor or opposed. Councillor Gilmore.
In favor.
Councillor Cridland.
In favor?
Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
And that is carried. So that motion has been rescinded. Okay. Moving back now to the options. Option 8 was taken off the floor, so we have no motions on the floor. Councillor Gilmore, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to make another motion then that we proceed with a request for pricing for option 8 and also the extra cost for option 9. Or take it the other way around if you think one's going to be, 9's going to be less. We went in whatever way Steve thinks that should go. I really need to know what both those numbers are before I'm comfortable with moving from where I currently am. So basically, I want to take the next step now and get pricing on both the both option 8, which is where we were at, as it is, and option 9, and know what the difference is.
Okay, that's a very straightforward motion. How much time would that involve, Steve? How long would that take? Oh, yeah, I need a seconder for that. So Councillor Van Vliet seconds it. Sorry. Steve, how long would that take?
So I'm just trying to follow exactly what it is you're like to put out an RFP for this, just to hire consultants?
Well, I'll let Councillor Gilmore speak to it. He's just looking for a price on option 8.
Yeah, Steve, I'm just picking up from where you left off about talking about how we could get a price for one and find out what the extra is for the other. So we need
sorry, that would just strictly be for consulting fees at this point.
All right, but so that either way, that's the next step. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's what we want to do. Get moving. But okay. I still, at the end of the day, I want to know the difference between 8 and 9. And then at that point, then we can make a solid decision on which one we're going to go with. Because these numbers are still there's too much fluidity in there for me at this point.
Councillor Cridland, you had your hand up first. Morgan, I'll come to you after.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I think if the chief wants to answer that live conversation, I'll go next. Thank you.
Chief?
Yeah, I think any consultant firm that's going to be hired to do a hard estimate, they're essentially designing two buildings, and they're doing the heat loss calculations, they're doing the mechanical evaluations. They're designing two buildings, and so any consultant that's going to be hired to design two buildings, those costs are going to be elevated. I know Fort Erie, they use the same thing. They did a contract manager, one firm, but they went in with one building in mind, and that was what they got their price on. It's going to be very difficult for that, and that's why we went down this road of doing the high level cost estimates before we went to the design aspect, because as soon as you start changing the design at the architect's level, it's going to get very, very costly every time we want to ask for this information.
Go ahead, Councillor Gilmore.
Okay, so Steve, you need to clarify what you said about getting prices on both then. You're talking about strictly consulting prices then?
Correct.
So, and then after that, that's when the chief's comments would come into play, like?
Right, then we would need to sit down and iron out which option we're going with.
Okay, so what's the consultant going to tell us that we already don't know from these estimates and drawings that you've given us?
At the onset, not much. Not until you get into a fully detailed design and hire mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and everybody else to start getting into the nitty-gritty of this. This is just a very high-level cost estimate.
Okay, but they're charging us over $200,000. What are we getting for $200,000 then? You're going to have to educate me a bit.
Sure. You get a complete set of drawings that allows you to tender the project, as well as the consultants will be there managing the project at the construction meetings, doing all the paperwork and making sure everything gets built according to code in the drawings for the year duration of the project.
Well, that doesn't get me where I want to be, so I got to think some more. Somebody else can talk.
I think what you're looking for is the request for two complete sets of drawings and a full two engineered buildings. And the only way that would happen is to find out what they cost, is to put those two buildings out to tender. But that's a lot of work.
And what kind of, I mean, I think it's probably, wasted money, but Councillor McClellan.
Yes, so the shop part of them would be the same. We're not changing the base part of it. But even so, it's going to be a lot of money to go. You're adding 3,000 square feet round number onto it. So yes, your heating, the heat loss studies and your electrical and all that changes. So you are asking for some more money and more time, right? This is the problem. These are estimates. All of this is an estimate. We don't know if, and we keep talking about inflation and all that. Yes, the price of lumber has gone up, but you know what? There's not a lot of work out there for these guys that are building this right now. So you may get a really sharp number. We don't know that, and this is the problem, right? And this is an estimate. We don't know where it's going to go.
Councillor Van Vliet and the CAO.
I think this question is for you, Stephen. Between option 9 and option 8, just the construction total, if we went with option 9, it's only $100,000 difference, not even $100,000 difference if we went with the bigger one, taking out all the consultant fees and project manager fees. And I get it, these are just an estimate. How far off are these estimates in your mind?
Well, you'll notice in these revised ones, I've put in a escalation cost as well, because it's been, as was mentioned, it's been a crazy couple of months. And I've talked to some other contractors in the area and some other people doing that are quantity surveyors as a profession. And they're estimating it's gone up about 8 to 10% in the last few months. Now, it may level off in the new year. We don't know. But these are estimates. They're not, I didn't estimate on the low end, because I hate being surprised afterwards. But what other municipalities like West Lincoln, I hate to quote them again, but they put out a dollar figure and this is what we want. Now, the dollar figure that they put out does not necessarily jive with everything they want. And the chief understands that. So once you sit down at the table, either you lower your expectations with your cost or you lower your expectations with what you want for the building. But if this council is prepared to say, okay, we're going to go out with an RFP and this is our upset limit of construction and this is what we want to try and fit in, that's the easiest way to get the ball rolling, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I look to the CAO for comments.
Mr. Mayor, the topic of West Lincoln has been raised again. Just to clearly indicate what their RFP was for, it was for the design, engineering, and contract management elements of the project. They have not gone to RFP for construction yet. So if and when those results become public, that is sort of the first phase of that. We're not going to see total construction bids coming in yet because they haven't done that RFP yet. They will be starting to work towards that with the firm that they retain. And again, we are, I think, somewhat ahead of them at this stage in that we've already done a lot of the legwork about what we want in this building. And you are, as a group, are now so much closer to that they don't even have that concept idea yet in reality. And I thought I saw Morgan raise his hand, and Councillor Cridland.
Go ahead, Morgan. First, Councillor Cridland, right after.
Sorry, yeah, so I was just going to echo what William said there. So the whole purpose of this concept exercise and high-level estimates was to provide council as much information as possible, knowing when we go to the RFP, we were essentially defining the scope of the project before we put it out for the consultant for the contract management and all of that. This is different than what was happened in Burnaby. And so similar thing, the council of the day, I think it was a Kalos Engineering or Colliers, they set a scope. They said, here's what we want. They set a budget, and the budget come back and they said, it's too much, let's cut. And so I believe they cut about 2,000 square feet and it went back out. And in the end, it wasn't done because the prices didn't match. And council, the budget was set without getting all of this pre-information. And there was a high level needs, but no real firm business case for any of it. That is why we did the survey of the firefighters in council last year. That's why we went on the station tours. That's why we've done all of these concepts and business case. So council fully understands if this is the option they're choosing, this is the level of service, this is what they're providing, and here's a high level estimate based on, and go back to when the budget was approved in March, that budget was approved based on the needs expressed at the time. So certainly, I mean, if council wants to pick a different option, that's fine, but it'll be up to council to define the priorities and define the scope again.
And, excuse me, and Councillor Cridland, I just make a comment, but again, we're getting back into the weeds here. You know, we're overthinking it. The architect, Steve, has said option 8 actually costs more than option 9. Option 9 is what we need and want as a fire station. I do not understand what the issue is. I don't think we can sit here and debate each other so we can spend more money of the taxpayers' money. That's not our job here. So I'm just perplexed. I don't understand why this is so complicated. It's straightforward. Councillor Cridland is next. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Well, I think with the discussion tonight, there is still a fundamental difference in what we all like, maybe, but but there is an interest in moving forward. So, Councillor Gilmore was, thinking about how we move this forward, and maybe well, the difference between 8 and 9, I know we're saying it's the same, et cetera, but if you look in the veneer and all that kind of stuff, there's money there that we've made decisions on. So that's not quite the same as what we're saying, but the public can look at those reports later anyway. But maybe the way to move forward is then get the, get the price and get the RFP for option 9, and worst case, doesn't go forward. But we've moved on to the next step. If either way, we all want to go to that next step. So,
do you want to make a motion about that?
Well, right now I'm discussing, so
Okay.
I'm not ready to make that motion yet. I'll just put that out there. Thanks.
Just, do I have one on the floor, Clerk? I've sort of lost track of where I am. I think I do. Yeah, so I just got to tweak it a little bit. So I'll pick up on Councillor Cridlin's comments, because, yeah, I mean, where I wanted to go, I couldn't really go because I didn't fully understand all these other things. So I think if my colleagues are willing to let this go forward, I'm happy to get a price on option 9. They aren't apples to apples. The difference is the brick veneer. If you take that out of 9 or out of 8 and have the same cladding, the number is going to be lower. There's no two ways about it. However, it's probably not enough to be a big number. So, in the interest of moving forward, then I think that we need to compromise and at least get a price on option 9. What I don't want to have happen is what happened to the previous council, where we set an upset limit and we didn't like the number and we did nothing. And that's precisely what happened. We set an upper number and when it went way over, we just washed our hands of it. Didn't go anywhere. There were other factors with things that went on in Chambers Corners and the debate about Chambers Corners. Lots of debate. There's lots of talk. At the end of the day, we're all responsible in exactly how we spend the money of the taxpayers. And what I don't like hearing is it's just this, it's just that, it's just $32, it's just. It all adds up going forward. And I'm a little more sensitive than normal, based on what I heard yesterday out of Ottawa with 12 zeros. 12 zeros. And nobody has a single iota idea of how to deal with 12 zeros and how we're going to deal with it. So it's not just $36 a month. It's not just what this really is, $4.5 million. If you do the math on the number of residents, it's $750. So when you look at it that way, it's not too bad. I wish we could all just prepay it and save ourselves $1 million of interest, because that's how much it's going to cost too. So I'm tired of hearing it's just, right? I want to get going, but in the back of my mind, in the big picture, there's 12 zeros in this country, not to mention the province or anywhere else. And nobody has a clue how to rein in this unbridled spending without any foresight about how to deal with it, except for my great-grandchildren. And to be honest with you, it's never going to get dealt with. So the only way I don't drive myself crazy is coming back to, I just got to concentrate on dealing with what goes on here in Wainfleet. End of discussion. Because if I think of anything else beyond that, I go nuts. And that's where I've been going here for the last 6 years, and I'll be going through it for who knows how many more. However, in the interest of moving this finally forward, then I'm willing to move forward with option 9 and get a number and get going.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to select option 9 and move forward, seconded by Councillor Van Vliet. Any other discussion? Okay, I don't see any. Councillor Cridland.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Well, again, with all the care that Council Gilmore just gave us in, the weight of these decisions to add both debt and space and whatever we want to call it. I don't know how we can do the option 9 and, the winner comes back with getting us less, so to speak. So it still seems too much, but if there was any way to amend number 9 so that it comes down a little bit with just something that says that we're not doing what we said in January because of the context that we're in, and just something that says council looked at everything that was brought to us and we considered it in the context of all the financial obligations of the township. So I know that the fire department has done an excellent job in getting us here. And I don't mind that it's taken as long as it has, but option 9 doesn't have much that's come off of it. So I certainly can support this motion, but I wish it was still better context in terms of all the other pressures that we're going to see the moment we vote on this. So thank you to my councillors for their deliberation on this. It's very valuable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cridland. So if there's no further discussion, we'll have a recorded vote. The motion is to select option 9. Start with Councillor Gilmore.
In favor.
Councillor Cridland.
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
And that is carried. If the Mr. CAO, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Again, thank you, Council, for that extensive debate. I know it was difficult. The last component of it, again, is proceeding to the RFP. Again, we've talked about it, but the motion talks about proceeding to option 9, but I want to make sure it's clear that the RFP that we're going to be releasing will be to select a firm for the final design, engineering, and contract management associated with an option 9 style facility. And with that, we will move as quickly as we can to release that to the public or to the general.
So my understanding on that, just to be clear for ourselves and the public, option 9 is it. It's going out, and the company will be hired, and we will be starting to build as soon as we can start to build.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, that firm will then prepare the design and all that sort of stuff. And then the RFP for building will have to yet be released after that. So we will still have to go to tender to actually do the construction after that.
Good. If there's nothing further this evening, it's been a very good debate, everyone, and the quorum has been excellent and respectful. It was very good. Councillor McClellan, you have a final comment?
I have one comment. The land at Chambers Corners. The zoning has been changed and it's ready to build, so it's done. Okay.
Okay. A motion to adjourn this meeting. Number 6.
Through you, I guess technically dealing with the notice of motion from Councillor Van Vliet, if she just withdraws it, that's
Withdrawn.
John. Okay. Okay, if there's nothing further, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.